What's up? What's happening? Happy game day, everybody. Welcome here to LSN College Central. I'm Travis Eldridge. A huge day of lacrosse. In some cases, an elimination day as well for teams fighting for their postseason lives. Here are today's headlines. UMass has clinched the top seed in the CAA tournament. They're going to host the tournament starting on Thursday, thanks to that win over Delaware last night. The CAA tourney, of course, right here on LSN next week. Looking ahead to today, the ACC semis on the men's side taking center stage, while one of the ACC women's semifinals, Duke versus North Carolina, delayed from last night to today due to weather. And Michigan, finally, the Wolverines finally did it. They beat their biggest rival. More on all those stories as we roll on, but why don't we start in the ACC? North Carolina still alive in the NCAA conversation thanks to a come-from-behind win over Syracuse on Thursday in the 4-5 game. So now, despite being the 5 seed in the ACC, they get to play top seed Virginia at home in the semifinals by virtue of it being UNC's turn to host the ACC tournament. Cavs have won 10 of their last 11 games, though, including a win over UNC in the regular season. The other ACC semi today, number 3 Duke and the 2 seed against 11th ranked Notre Dame, the 3 seed, also in Chapel Hill. The Blue Devils beat the Irish back at the beginning of April. That was when Duke first kind of figured out this newfound offensive spurt. Brad Smith has been a catalyst since moving back into the midfield, and the defense is as good as any in the country with JT Giles-Harris and Cade Van Ratphorst leading the way. And so with that, we introduce you to our analyst, Finn Sullivan, the former Hofstra standout, current Denver Outlaw. Finn, when we look at the ACC semifinals, why don't we start with North Carolina? They were done, dead to right. 3 minutes to go. They're losing against Syracuse by 3, and they find a way back in it. Do the Heels have enough to kind of put a run together?
So it gives you a little bit of shades of that 2016 run they went on to the title game. They were kind of dead to rights in this April month here, and then all of a sudden they go on this crazy winning streak, win the ACC, and then take that into the NCAA. So you never know. It's crazy. You never know what could happen in this league. If they get hot, like you said, with the home field advantage in this game today, too, that's going to be huge for them. So this ACC is shaping up to be crazy towards the end.
What do you make of their chances today against Virginia, a Cavs team that at times looks like as good as anybody in the country?
Yeah, definitely. I think UNC's definitely playing for a little bit more today. They're in desperation mode. UVA, you have to think they're already into the NCAA tournament by now. So that'll be interesting to see. But UVA, they have the firepower to put up, 15-plus goals against any defense really in the country. So UNC is going to have to start on the defensive end of the field and figure out how to stop those top guys.
Speaking of defense, of course, Notre Dame traditionally known for their defense in the other semifinal, but they play a Duke team that probably has the best defense in the ACC this year with Cade Van Ratphorst, JT Giles-Harris leading the way at the long pole position. How do you stack up this matchup? Notre Dame's kind of been a Jekyll and Hyde. Sometimes you get a great Notre Dame performance, sometimes you don't. How do you stack this one up?
So this one's interesting, too. Notre Dame's another team in desperation mode. With JT Giles-Harris and Cade Van Ratphorst, those are 2 close defensemen. Notre Dame, they have an attackman, Brendan Gleeson, that's a go-to dodger for them. But I feel like they initiate a lot from the midfield. So I'm looking more to see how Duke's long stick midi and short stick T middies do against the Notre Dame stable of midfielders.
And Gleeson coming off a terrific performance last week against North Carolina, helping the Irish get this 3 seed and avoid that 4-5 matchup in the ACC tournament. So those ACC semis coming your way later on today. Meanwhile, in the CAA, we had a whole bunch of questions entering last night, but the biggest one has now been answered thanks to the UMass win over Delaware right here on LSN last night. Why don't we show you what went down yesterday between UMass and Delaware? UMass started great, went off to a 3-0 lead, and both teams entered the fourth tied in this one. Defenses tightened up, both Delaware's Matt DeLuca, UMass's Sean Scanoni, excellent in goal, but ultimately the playmakers for UMass making plays down the stretch. Chris Conley, Jeff Traynor put home key goals in that final fourth quarter stretch. UMass clinching the top seed in the CAA tournament with the win. So Finn, this win means UMass hosts the CAA tournament. You played in this league at Hofstra. What's the advantage and what's the edge a team has by having the tournament at their place?
I think it's huge. You know, you get to wake up in your own bed, go through your normal game day routine as if it's a normal home, game for them. But as you've seen in the past, like 5 or 10 years of the CAA, it's not necessarily the top seed that's always going to advance. I think it was just a couple years ago that UMass came out as a 4 seed. So, this league is so kind of close, especially at the top this year. There seems to be a top 3 grouping with UMass, Towson, and Delaware. Those teams are really razor-thin margin between the 3 of them. So it really could be anyone, but I think it gives a little bit of a extra boost to the Minutemen to have the home field advantage.
Yeah, 3 years in a row, the top seed in the CAA has won the tournament. You go back 4 years, Towson, I believe, did it at Fairfield. Yep. So other teams have done it 3 years in a row. It's been a nice advantage. It moves to today now, though, to figure out the rest of the seeds. Towson hosts Drexel, or Drexel hosts Towson, the final game of the regular season in conference. Towson wins, they get the 2 seed. However, Drexel's been playing great, and Towson will be without Alex Woodall today. He's unavailable, according to Towson SID John Stark. He just tweeted that out this morning. What's the effect if there's no Alex Woodall on this Tigers team?
It's huge. I think we've seen this year from Towson, if they're not facing off over 60% and saving the ball at over 60%, they're very beatable and very vulnerable because they don't have the really strong defense that they normally do to rely on. So it's going to be interesting to see if, their backup face-off guy is able to battle to, kind of at least a 50% or above maybe for Towson to hopefully pull away with the win today.
Towson's face-off man, Alex Woodall, out with an upper body injury he suffered last week against Delaware. He went out in the first half. Towson's still relatively successful. I believe won about 67% of the face-offs without him, about 2/3 still. But Delaware, not quite the face-off matchup as they will have today against Drexel. So will be interesting to watch how that shapes out in the Ivy League, in the CAA. Now to the Ivy League. We're down to 3 teams for 2 spots. No question marks at the top, though. Penn clinched its first outright regular season Ivy crown since 1988 last week. Today, the 4th-ranked Quakers finishing off the regular season out of league. They play Vermont at a neutral site in Wilton, Connecticut. Penn, really the hottest team in the country. They dropped those 3 straight to start the year against top 3 teams in the nation, but they've now rattled off 8 straight wins. We caught up with Mike Murphy and Vermont coach Chris Fipes this week to find out what they hope to get out of this non-conference league tourney primer.
Yeah, I don't think there's been one moment when there was a seismic shift. It's really been more gradual and a slow build of confidence and a steady improvement in some of the little things we've been doing. But clearly, winning at Cornell by a goal, kind of a last-second shot, and then obviously the very last second of regulation with Tyler Dunn against Yale. Those 2 were pretty big moments, but I think by and large it's been kind of a steady uphill climb, if you will, to go through, from Villanova and St. Joe's and then through our regular season Ivy League games.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to test us. They're the number 2 offense in the country, and they're on a 7-game winning streak, and they've had a phenomenal season. They have a great face-off guy, great goalie as well. So it's going to test us in all phases and hopefully, put more pressure on some of the things that we want to tighten up before conference play. We definitely want to win the game, and we're going to give it our best effort.
So you hear from Chris Fipes, his Vermont team. They're in the America East tournament, though we'll talk about that later on. But in the Ivy League, Penn, it kind of snuck out of, not nowhere, but snuck up on everybody because now they're the top seed in the Ivy League tournament. They are in control, really, of their own destiny. They are an NCAA tournament team. What do you make of this Quakers squad?
It's interesting. We're used to seeing Yale dominate this league for the past at least 5 years or so. It seems like
Brown was in that conversation.
Brown was in there a little bit.
Years,
yeah, absolutely. But it seems like Penn's really starting with kind of their win over Yale earlier this season has taken that pole position in the league and has not looked back. They're kind of throttling teams, and they're doing it with a balanced scoring attack on offense.
So Yale is the number 2 seed in this league. Penn and Yale solidified in those first couple spots. Then entering today, we got 3 teams for 2 spots. Brown, Princeton, and Cornell. The Big Red were supposed to be that team,
That's right.
along with the Yale at the top of the Ivy League. They've got to find a way to win today or lose close against Princeton to make sure they're in. There are all sorts of different tiebreaker scenarios that could come into play depending on the result of that Cornell-Princeton game and Brown and Dartmouth. What does Cornell need to do here down the stretch to put themselves not only in the tournament, but be the team I think a lot of people thought they were going to be this year?
Yeah, it's been the story with them all season long, addressing their half-field 6-on-6 defense. That's going to be the story for them today, especially dealing with Sowers on Princeton, who might win Player of the Year in that conference, or he's right in that race, you know. So their defense has kind of held them back from ascending to their expectations heading into the year. And if they're going to come away with the win today and qualify for the tournament, they're going to need to lock up that defense and maybe think about doubling Sowers almost everywhere across the field.
Face-off position has also been a big question mark for Cornell this year. Quickly on Sowers, Princeton hasn't made an Ivy League tournament. They didn't make it last year. What would it mean for Sowers to find a way to get into the postseason here?
It'd be huge. I mean,
I think we want to see him on the biggest stage.
Everyone knows that this kid puts up monster points, but we haven't really been able to see him so much on the national stage. For them to get into the tournament and for him to kind of showcase what he's all about to the rest of the country would be huge.
It would be so much fun if you put him in the tournament. Though
awesome.
I think it may come at the expense of Jeff Teep being in the tournament. So you got one spot for a couple of players that are really, really good. Well, we're going to see a couple of really good players on Penn today right here on LSN. A game you can watch on Lac Sports Network this afternoon, the IMLCA Game of the Week, 1 p.m. Eastern. Penn closing out the regular season, taking on Vermont. That's a neutral site game in Wilton, Connecticut. Going to be a great one. Check it out, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on LacSportsNetwork.com. The LSN app is on LSN2, so just scroll down off the main feed here, scroll down. That logo will be there. Click on it. You can check out the Quakers and Catamounts. As for now, coming up on LSN College Central, a thriller last night in the ACC Women's Tournament will show you the wild way BC stayed unbeaten. Plus, we'll hear from the scoring machine from Hofstra, who is rewriting the career record books as just a junior. And it's simply called The Rivalry, one of the biggest games every single season. Maryland hosting Hopkins will set the stage here on College Central. It's game day, everybody.
Coach Quirk here. Today we're going to be covering our clearing game. Okay, the next drill is clearing. We're going to use 2 low defenders, a midfielder at the top of the box, and a midfielder pinching down low to simulate a clear to push our offense. We'll start with the goalie with the ball, breaking out to the wing player, calling for the ball, get that overpass, build up the ladder up the field, and our midfielders breaking up for some transition. Really the fundamentals that we're working on are overpasses, stick work, breaking to the ball, and breaking upfield to receive a pass to start the offense. Break. Overpass completed. Now we're building the ladder up the field. Player coming to the ball, midi breaking up the field to start transition. At every level, clearing is instrumental to starting the team offense. A few coaching points during the clearing drill: communication, good crisp passes, fundamentals, stick work, breaking to the ball, and breaking up the field.
What a game we had last night in the ACC semis. Number 1, unbeaten Boston College against Syracuse. The Eagles, the top seed in this ACC tournament, hosting the tournament, but down by 3 under 7 minutes to go. But the Eagles finding their way back into this thing, 1 goal at a time, an incredible run. They would score 4 unanswered goals down the stretch, coming all the way back to beat the Orange. BC dramatically winning 14-13. So the Eagles still unbeaten. They avoid the loss in the semifinals, and they've got a date in the ACC championship game on Sunday. We don't know who they're going to play yet. The other ACC women's semi was supposed to follow all that craziness last night, but because of thunderstorms here in the Boston area, that pushed this game until today at noon Eastern time. Duke and North Carolina going to play at Boston College for the right to play in tomorrow's championship game. It's a rematch of last weekend's game that was won handily by the Heels. So we bring back our analyst, Finn Sullivan. Whoever wins today going to have to play the semifinals this afternoon and then back-to-back days to try to win this ACC championship against an Eagles team that's got the entire day to rest leading into that title game on Sunday. What's the effect?
I mean, it's tough as, you know, you're battling the number 1 team in the country, and then on top of it, you have 1 less day of rest than they do. But at a certain point, you know, it's an ACC championship game. You kind of take it on the chin if you're Duke or UNC. Whoever wins this semifinal game today, you just say, you know what? That's fine. This is the hand we were dealt. We're going to come back anyway and give them our best effort. And that's what I expect the winner of this semifinal game to do tomorrow.
It's not something a lot of these teams are asked to do in the regular season in women's lacrosse, but it's something these players do all throughout their entire careers in the summers, playing in tournaments coming up.
Yeah.
You're playing 2-3 games in a day. So should it really matter that much for North Carolina or Duke, whoever comes out of this?
So I think there's an effect. There's a fatigue effect, but it shouldn't, especially later in the season, I think, when all these, you know, teams have their legs under them at this point in the season. They've been playing since January or at least early February. So I think at this point, you just kind of, like I said, take it on the chin. You're UNC and Duke. You almost kind of like laugh at the circumstances and say, you know what? Why not us anyway? And just go out and see what happens.
How much fun is that BC offense to watch?
They're amazing. I mean, they have some legit bona fide stars, 3 of them on offense there, and they put up points against everyone in the country so far, so it's been fun to watch.
Sam Mapuza, the reigning Towson winner, was telling Carcaterra for U.S. Lacrosse Magazine this past week that the biggest change after winning the Towson was she had to go public on Instagram because she had too many follow requests. So
yeah,
certainly a
good
star
problem
now.
to have, I guess.
Sam Mapuza, very good problem to
Yeah.
have. Why don't we stay with the women in the CAA now? The bracket now set for next weekend's tournament. That thanks to Elon's win last night. The Phoenix securing that final spot in the 4-team tournament by beating William and Mary. So they're going to face the top seed, defending national champion James Madison in one semifinal. Towson, the 2 seed, faces Hofstra in the other semi. The whole tournament in Harrisonburg, Virginia at JMU, and of course can be seen right here on LSN. Speaking of the Pride, one of the reasons this Hofstra team is the 3 seed, the play of junior Alissa Perella. Her Pride taking on Drexel right here on LSN at 3 o'clock Eastern. Last weekend, scored 13 combined goals in 2 games, 7 in the loss to Towson, 6 more in the win over Delaware. She's 3rd in the country in points per game at 5.8 and leads the nation in goals per game. She is loading up on the stats, and as just a junior, she's already broken the Hofstra career points record at 249 career points. That's something she accomplished in that win over Delaware. She's now just 1 goal shy of the career goals record at Hofstra with 183, and she's 1st in single season goals at Hofstra with 78. The old record was 57, so she's already shattered that, and she's also now number 1 with single season points with 93 points this season. The old record was 81. Also shattered that. Why don't we hear from the record breaker now?
Yeah, I think it's really just putting everything together and making sure the little mistakes don't happen. I think that towards the beginning of the year, those little mistakes, they're okay to happen and we grow from them. But at this point, it's the little things have to be done correctly. And I think we've been working with that during practices a lot, making sure the little things are happening correctly, making sure we're not making the same mistake twice. And I think going into game that's going to be tough and going into the CAA play, when those little things do happen, we got to move on for them, keep our heads up, and really move forward and pick it up for the next couple of games.
Couple of close losses for this Hofstra team throughout the season to Towson and JMU, two teams that they're going to have to beat. They want to win a CAA title. When you look at the CAA conference here, and especially Alissa Perella, you went to Hofstra. What does a player like that mean to that women's program? Breaking all these records is now just a junior.
I mean, it's incredible, the fact that, she's been the sort of alpha on that team and the best player on the women's team for 3 years now. It's since her freshman year. And, facing double teams from other CAA teams basically her whole career, and the fact that she's able to break this record as a junior. We're going to see how much she breaks the record by when her career's all said and done at the end of her senior season. But it's really incredible to see what she's doing.
And for you as a Hofstra alum, this women's program kind of had a couple of down years the last several seasons. Now back in the mix in the CAA tournament. What's it like to see that uptick once again? They're competing with some of the best teams in the conference right now. Yeah,
it's great. I saw, the coach there, Shannon Smith. She came in during my time at Hofstra, and right away she kind of took on this really hard work ethic. Really kind of focused the team back around winning, and to see that culture sort of, they've been progressively getting better and better in the CAA, and this year has been a really great year for them so far. So it's cool to watch for sure.
Well, you can see them in action today right here on Lac Sports Network. Hofstra and Drexel going down in Philadelphia, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Opening draw, our CAA Women's Game of the Week, the final Women's Game of the Week of the regular season before we head down to JMU for the CAA Women's Tournament. Catch it today, 3 p.m. Eastern, Lac Sports Network and the LSN app. As for now, still ahead on College Central, Pat Spencer and Loyola, the top dogs in the Patriot League once again. We'll show you the seedings and matchups for that conference tournament as they are now set after a little craziness on Friday night. And when you beat your biggest rival for the first time ever, you celebrate. A look at the Michigan locker room after its win over Ohio State.
Speed. Power. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The NCAA Men's Lacrosse Championships. May 25th through 27th at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia.
In the stick, boom, on the money, cradle and a pass. With the first championship!
Visit ncaa.com/lacrosse to get your ticket.
We got a good show tonight.
Talking about the high school season.
We're here right now at Dickinson College.
And in order to try to win this stick, we have a trivia question.
Great to have you here.
You play from that emotion, you can't really lose.
You played for a year and you fell in love with the game.
Watch Beyond the Game on LSN.
Welcome back to LSN College Central, the Patriot League tournament set. Loyola, the top seed. The Hounds going to host the semis and finals, while Lehigh is the 2 seed. That's important because it means you get a bye into the semifinals. In the quarterfinals on Tuesday, Army hosts Holy Cross in the 4-5 matchup. How about the Crusaders, Finn?
Like this team. They've kind of come on the scene this year after some years kind of at the bottom of those standings there. Love seeing them up in the Patriot League tournament this year.
Yeah, first year with a new coach and right back in the mix as the 5 seed. They beat Lehigh last night in order to put themselves in that spot. And then you have Army and Bucknell in the 3-6 matchup. Those winners, of course, move on to Friday's semifinals.
Let's go. We got a song to share. You know what to do. Hail to the Patriots, hail to the Conquering Hail, hail, Michigan, the leader, hail to the Patriots, hail to the Conquering Hail, hail, Michigan, the trending zone. Let's go.
How about that? Michigan singing its fight song after its first ever win over rival Ohio State, 13-10 on Friday night. And the celebration, it didn't stop there. A little dance party to Old Town Road. Afterward, dance all you want, Wolverines. What a win, man. No postseason for Michigan, but they do play spoiler ultimately. That victory for the Wolverines, knocking Ohio State not only out of the Big Ten tournament, but maybe out of the NCAAs. Was talking to Paul Carcaterra this week on ESPN Lacrosse Weekly. Said they don't make the Big Ten tournament. They're likely on the outside looking in. And, well, 1-4 in conference. They don't make the tournament. What do you make of the Buckeyes? Do they have a shot?
They might have a shot. We'll see how this, all shakes out when it's all said and done based on the other conference races. But you have to think really disappointing end for their season if they aren't able to advance in the tournament, going undefeated in non-conference play. You get to the Big Ten schedule feeling great about yourself, and then go 1-4 and miss out on the tournament. It's a really sudden kind of end to the year if that's how their story ends.
Yeah, I mean, how surprising is the result last night to you, knowing, look, Michigan is going to get up for the game because it's their rival, and you're going to get the Wolverines' best shot, but you would think for Ohio State, not only are you playing your rival that you've never lost to, but you've got to win here just to keep your hopes alive.
Yeah, I mean, both teams are obviously going to come into that fighting hard. It's a rivalry game for both teams. Ohio State, it just doesn't look like they were able to ever stop the bleeding once they started kind of getting a loss or two into Big Ten play. They were never able to galvanize as a group and say, okay, listen, let's bounce back and save our season here. And it rolled into last night as well.
So let's look ahead to today now, because we now know what the 4 teams are going to be in the Big Ten tournament. And we get a matchup of 2 of those teams tonight. The rivalry game, one of the best games in all of college lacrosse every single season. We've got Hopkins and Maryland tonight. It's arguably one of the best rivalry games in all of college lacrosse. Those 2 are both in the Big Ten tournament, but Hopkins, sitting there right around 500, may need to win tonight in order just to keep the hopes alive, because you got to be at least 500 or better to even have a chance at an at-large berth in the NCAAs.
That's right. I think we had done the math a little bit earlier, and they need to win today, and then even a loss in the first round of the Big Ten conference tournament would keep them at 500 to at least be eligible to be selected. So we'll see. They need this game. Long story short, they need to win today. Maryland, they're into the Big Ten tournament play, and you have to think they're already into the NCAA tournament too. So they might, this might be a lesser priority game for them, but it's a rivalry game at the end of the day. So both teams, like we said about Ohio State and Michigan, they're both going to come out swinging, in my opinion.
Well, and you look at this game too. It's the rivalry.
Exactly.
It's just any
it's
rivalry.
The rivalry. That's right.
It's a big day at Maryland. You got the spring football game to start things off. Then the women's team plays against Hopkins before then the men's team plays against Hopkins at night. The atmosphere is, it's all you need to know. That's why you go to Maryland or Hopkins, right?
Exactly. I think that's one of the recruiting pitches is, you come here for this special day and we'll beat Hopkins 4 times a year. We'll beat Maryland 4 times a year. So, regardless of how the teams record-wise are at the end of the year, when they play each other, they want to, give it their all and have that kind of bragging rights going into the next year.
Playing for the Giant Crab Trophy. That is
right.
a good one tonight on the Big Ten Network. The other game in the Big Ten, Penn State and Rutgers later on this afternoon. Nittany Lions, the top seed in the tournament. Rutgers, though, gets to host because it's their turn in the rotation. So as the 3 or 4 seed, they'll be playing at home. That'll be an interesting thing to watch as we head into next weekend. But that's the slate here for today. Going to be a big day of lacrosse. We'll see you at 1 p.m. Eastern. You got Penn and Vermont right here on Lac Sports Network. But for now, for Finn, I'm Travis. Lacrosse Now coming your way later on tonight at 9.
Lac Sports Network is proud to present the CAA Game of the Week. Today, week 2 of conference play. Vitus Field, the site in Philadelphia, as the Delaware Blue Hens at 1-0 cross the river and take on the Drexel Dragons at 0-1. Brendan Glasheen with Malcolm Chase. Thanks for joining us this afternoon for CAA action, the CAA Game of the Week on Lac Sports Network.